Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles, your favorite true crime podcast. I am Donnie, and with me is a man that finds it very ironic that it takes 12 steps to get a beer out of his fridge. It's Dale.
Well, if you walk, a little longer stride, it don't take quite as many.
Well, is that your program, 12-step program?
I got about an 8-step.
8-step?
Yeah.
Do you get there quicker with 8 steps?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it's probably about the same for whoever's shorter than me. It takes 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you get one beer at a time? Do you grab two and just have one for a few minutes later? Or
Depends on what I'm doing.
Okay.
If I'm grilling, I got 2 for sure.
You got two, one on deck.
I got a cup that holds 2, so I'm good to go. Save for the trips.
I hear you, bud.
Got me a crack house cup, man.
That's it. What's going on, dude?
You?
No.
Same old.
Same old.
Actually, it's not. It's a good day.
It is a very good day.
That's right.
We're recording.
We are recording. We're back with our friends and family, aren't we?
We are.
What's up, guys?
What's going on, dudes?
Good to be back.
We are.
Got some good stuff going on today.
We are.
And we got a few things to talk about pre-show.
We got some good shout-outs for us, bud.
We do. Look at this.
Ooh.
Yeah. How about that?
How about it?
First, you guess where we're going? We're going all the way to Edinburgh. That's over in Scotland.
Is that across the pond?
That's way across the pond.
Oh.
Yeah. And this came in, I think today, actually, from Princess Smith. It's a 5-star Facebook recommendation.
5-star.
Yeah, boy. It says, love listening to this true crime podcast. Came across it not too long ago, and I'm already on episode 112.
Wow.
No doubt. You got to slow down. We got to make them faster.
Yeah.
or
up?
just listen to them and then go back and start over. You can do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen to it all the time. Dale and Donnie both do a great job. Highly recommended all the way from Edinburgh in Scotland.
Oh, thank you very much, Princess Smith.
That there is at Edinburgh over there in Scotland, boy.
Yeah.
Got some good stuff going on over there.
It is.
And we appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you a whole bunch.
And we got one over on the Apple podcast.
5-star.
Review gimmick. 5-star. Thank you. This comes from AC Brooksy. Main one since day one. I'm pretty sure I've been listening to these guys since at least 10 episodes, maybe even 5 actually. So you've been here for a while.
Yes.
I'm kind of paraphrasing. Anyway, you obviously have gotten better after the final 2 winners. I think that's me and you have taken over. But the two of you have stayed true to who you are, and I love the jokes, but also the no nonsense and the to the point telling of the stories. Y'all do an amazing job.
Well, we try to stay true to who we are.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
Yeah, we don't change things up. We stay the same and try to keep things going like they are.
We're just us, man.
If you got a good thing, why change it?
It's the real deal. We just come in here and turn it on and do it.
Yeah.
I ain't trying to be nobody.
That's right.
I'm just me.
That's right. I'm just me.
If I ain't good enough, then I guess I am.
Yeah.
Anyway.
If it ain't good enough, then listen to somebody else. But if anybody wants to be like these fine folks and give a recommendation, 5-star.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, whatever you listen to, if it allows it.
Yes.
Click it.
5 stars and subscribes and likes and shares and tell your friends and all that stuff.
Yes, we appreciate it a whole bunch.
Yeah, man. Because, it's kind of funny. We worked with a guy for a long time, and he never realized that we did this, and now we do it, and he's a big fan.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you. Thank you, Larry. And you even got a shirt and all kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, he's just a big fan. He comes by and talks to us and just, man, I had no idea.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Love it, man.
And he always asks questions. I was like, just keep listening to the podcast. Or go back and listen to the old episodes and you'll find out stuff.
That's right.
So we'll drop little hints every once in a while on things we do and how things are.
But it's really cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, we appreciate all you guys.
We really do.
That's enough sappy shit. Let's get to it.
All right. We got a pretty interesting case today, Dale.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's not as...
I was going to say we're going to gear it back from last week, but hell, anything's gearing it back from last week.
Yeah, but this is still tragic, and it's
very tragic.
Yeah, it's tragic, and it's sad, and it's rough, but this one's unsolved, so it definitely needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But today we are talking about Carina Saunders.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Carina was born on July the 17th, 1992, near Mustang, Oklahoma.
Right.
To parents Margie Queen and Richard Saunders. Now, Carina, she was the oldest of 9 children.
9?
9. She was the oldest of 9. And she was described by her parents to be able to stand out from the crowd. She was described as being bright and funny, and she had a knack for putting a smile on anyone's face.
Right.
That was what her father, Richard, had later recalled. And he also quoted as saying, Carina was always full of smiles and joy. She was probably one of the most giddy kids you would have ever seen in your life. Pretty good quote there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now, like I said, Carina lived with her family there in Mustang, Oklahoma, and she attended the town's only high school, which was Mustang High.
Mustang High.
Yeah, and there she was known for her constant singing, and eventually was given a spot in the honors choir. And she was studying opera.
Yeah, she was really smart.
Yeah, studying she was wanting to be an opera singer.
Mm-hmm. But she also had planned like she was going to fall back to be an accountant or something like that, you know. So she was really smart. I think she had won a couple spelling bees and then some other math stuff too, right?
Yeah, the region's top mathlete.
Right.
Yeah, and so, she also won a statewide tournament in accounting, which
pretty
was
impressive, you know.
Very impressive. Very smart kid.
So she always had something to fall back on if she didn't make it as her professional opera singer.
Yep. And Carina always had a knack for making friends where she went, and had a goofy sense of humor, and was able to make most anyone laugh at a moment's notice.
Pretty good stuff. That's good quality, man.
It is very good quality. Now, in 2010, Carina graduated from Mustang High School a year early. So that tells you right there how smart she was.
Yeah.
And Dale, at this point, she was wanting to enter adulthood. But things started going sideways for Carina. By 2011, she was beginning to struggle with some substance abuse.
Yeah, I think she got into smoking weed and then kind of graduated it up, per se.
Yeah.
From that to a little harder stuff, which is not good.
Nope. And that summer, she actually went to rehab to get herself back straight, to try to get going again with her life.
Yeah, she had got pretty bad on meth, I believe, actually, is what it was. You know, and pretty strung out. And I don't even know if she was living at home or on the streets. It was just a bad part in her life. And then she was able to pull herself out of it, went to rehab, and then was come back, you know, to doing pretty well, actually.
Mm-hmm. And she actually noticed that she was having this problem, so she checked herself in.
Right.
So that was very good of her to try to do that.
Yeah, and when she came back, you know, her friends just noticed how good she looked, and she was back to her old self.
Yep. Now, on September the 18th of 2011, Carina was 19 years old and fresh out of rehab. And her mother, Margie Queen, saw her and later said that Carina seemed to be doing much better. For the first time after graduating high school, she seemed to be on the right track once again.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing good. And Carina and her mother attended church that day.
Yeah.
And this was Margie's local Nazarene church.
Mm-hmm.
And Carina even posted about it on her social media.
Yeah, sure did.
How she had got a blessing from it and accepted the Lord into her life.
That's right.
Yeah, so seemed like she was really wanting to change and start doing better. But now social media was how Carina and her family kept up with one another.
Yeah, she didn't have a phone, which is kind of surprising.
She didn't have a cell phone at all.
This is 2011. Yeah,
and she didn't have a license or vehicle.
Yeah, didn't drive.
No.
Which that to me is not as rare nowadays as the phone thing, you know, because, you know, we were coming up. It was like 15 years old and 363 days. You was jumping at the bed to get them licenses.
Yeah,
the day you hit 16.
Counting it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays, kids could care less.
That's right. Yep.
Kind of odd. Well, most of them anyway. I won't speak for all of them.
But that's how they used to keep up with Carina.
Right. And
it was later that day, on September the 18th, 2011, Carina and her mother, Margie, said goodbye to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little more than a week later, on September the 28th, Carina would post on social media for the last time.
Well, she was living with her cousin.
Yes.
And her cousin and
her name was Catherine.
Thank you. I was looking. Anyway, they were more kind of like sisters, really, than just a cousin. So it's kind of like they had moved in together, and that's where she was staying.
Yeah.
Right.
But Carina posted on her Facebook just a simple question: "What's everybody doing tonight?"
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't get many responses at all.
Just got a few.
Yeah. But that would be her last post on any social media. And about a week after that, her family, they got concerned about Carina's safety.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now that day, September the 28th, 2011, Catherine and Carina, they went to a Taco Bell, which was alongside Interstate 40, near an intersection along Rockwell Avenue. And at the time, Carina was wearing a white muscle shirt and gray Victoria's Secret's pants with the brand name Pink that was printed on the back.
Right.
Yeah.
You've seen them.
Yeah, everybody's seen them. And despite arriving at the Taco Bell together, Carina and Catherine weren't leaving together.
No, she was just taking her pair to meet a guy, I think.
Yeah. Carina was going to be leaving with an acquaintance of hers. This was an older guy named Kenny.
Right.
Who Carina had told some family members and friends about.
When we say older, we mean like 40-something.
Yes.
So, no, not like just a couple years older than her. It's a 40-some-year-old guy who's going to pick up this 19-year-old
Yeah,
girl.
not good at all. And according to some people that were familiar with this Kenny, who was later identified as Kenny Richards, he was involved with Carina in some sort of sex worker scheme deal.
Right.
And some people have implied that he was her pimp.
Yeah.
But Carina told others he was just going to make her a porn star. Yeah. And in the following months, Kenny would be accused at one point of making a nude video of Carina and even soliciting her for prostitution.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of this has been proven or not, but a lot of this is...
This is what some of her
her
friends have said.
Right.
Now, this Kenny Richards would later testify that he had picked up Carina that afternoon at the Taco Bell and told police that the two hung out together for a while before he dropped her off at an apartment complex in Bethany, Oklahoma.
Right.
But to his credit, he seemed to have been telling the truth, Dale.
Yeah.
But after being dropped off at this apartment complex in Bethany, this was just outside of Oklahoma City, this began a period of more than a week in which Carina's whereabouts became unknown. Now, more than a week after Carina was seen by her cousin Catherine, a former high school friend saw her at this apartment complex he lived at.
Right.
And this friend, who has been referred to as Keegan, that's all we know as Keegan.
Yeah, now, she ran into Keegan at the apartment complex, and we watched a documentary with this, and he was on there. And he was talking about how she looked, fairly thin when he saw her, and he said that he was walking up the thing, and he heard someone yell at him, looked, and it was her, and he hadn't seen her in years. And he went to her and was talking to her and stuff, and he was just joking around, goes, dang, when's the last time you eat? And she goes, I think it was like yesterday at breakfast. So he actually invited her up to his apartment and made her some Hot Pockets for lunch.
Yeah.
When he ran into her, she was sweeping the steps off and said she was staying with the handyman there and his kid, just in helping him do some work to kind of pay off being able to stay with him. Now, whether that was true or not, he don't know. He just said that's what she told him. So we ended up making her some food and let her sit around and said she made a joke. She had like this little drawstring bag that she had all her possessions in.
All her worldly possessions, is what she said, yeah.
Yeah, so he actually went and got it was like a green Nike duffel bag that he had and give it to her and said, if you're going to be out here and you're on the road, you need something a little safer to keep all your stuff in. So he actually did that, but after that, I think he hadn't seen her after that day.
Yeah, Carina, she was into this transient lifestyle deal.
Yeah, probably where she didn't want to do or not. I figured she's already back on the stuff.
While the timeline of Keegan's encounter with Carina was pretty loose, we know that she was alive at least on October the 8th of 2011.
Right.
Now, that day, it was a Saturday, and Carina would be spotted on CCTV footage from outside a Newcastle Casino gaming center roughly 20 miles south of Bethany, Oklahoma. Now, in this footage, Carina is seen getting into a red truck, and it was described as a large four-door Ford pickup truck with a brush guard and lights on the top. That roll bar.
Yeah.
People used to do on their trucks.
Go four-wheeler, man.
Yeah, and it looked like a group of men were inside the pickup truck.
Right.
But only one could be described.
Yeah, because he actually got out of the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his arms were covered in tattoo sleeves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this part right here kind of bugs me because you can't tell me this damn casino, they got what, one camera? Come on, man.
Yeah, it blows my mind.
But even in that documentary, it said to this day, they've never released an actual photo of the truck. Can you tell me why they would do that?
I don't know.
They had a picture of one. It would be the same. It was the same model, and as far as they know, they showed a picture of that. But they said to this day that they've never released the actual picture of the truck, and that just blows my mind.
They need to release the photo of the truck and the guy with the tattoo sleeves.
Yeah, that just blows my mind. Why keep it?
Exactly.
I don't understand.
Yeah, and put out there, can you identify this?
Right.
Today. I mean, do it. Do it today, people.
I mean, I don't want to get in the weeds here, but shit like that just kind of drives me nuts.
But now, according to the descriptions of this footage, which shows Carina getting into the truck, a dark vehicle is parked nearby.
Right.
And in that car is a group of young women who they say were pleading with Carina not to get in the pickup truck.
Right. So, and nothing's been said about that.
No.
I mean, besides this little bit of information right here.
Now, to this day, it is unknown who any of these individuals are.
Yeah, the man, the men, the truck, the car, the women in the car, that vehicle. I mean,
none of these people.
You mean, you've been to a casino before. They got 11 million cameras in that place.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure they got more than one in the damn parking lot.
Yep.
Come on.
But the identities of these men and women would more than likely fill in many of the gaps
Right.
from Carina's story.
Yeah, I mean, hell, it's the last time you see her, I think.
Exactly.
Her getting in that truck.
They need to post this stuff. They need to let this stuff out.
Yeah.
And the very next day, this was Sunday, October the 9th, 2011, Carina's cousin, the Catherine we mentioned, her name was Catherine Jo Bloodworth. She received a threatening text message that seemed to indicate something had happened to Carina.
This is weird.
Yeah. Now, Catherine was texted by a young man named Kyle Savage, who had known Carina for around 2 years. But police would later determine that Carina and Kyle had been exchanging text messages in the preceding weeks. But on this day, Kyle seemed to be threatening physical violence against Carina and Catherine. And one in particular text message read, "I'm going to bury you next to Carina." Yeah, that's threatening, and
that's just scary.
Yeah, that is.
Especially at this point when you don't even know anything she's even missing. Really,
yep.
I mean,
but we got to keep in mind too that Carina was using Catherine's phone a lot to
she didn't have one.
Send messages and stuff, like we said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she didn't have nothing to do. Let her get on a laptop or something and use her messengers. That's all she had, as far as I know. Yeah.
Now, this guy, Kyle Savage, would later claim that the text messages were misconstrued and taken out of context. How do you take that out of context?
I don't know, unless it was a lot more than what's being released.
"I'm going to bury you next to Carina." That sounds pretty...
It's pretty straightforward to me.
Exactly, yeah. He stated that he had no idea he was texting Carina's cousin, but thought it was another guy, perhaps a romantic rival,
right,
saying only that he had felt threatened and lashed out with a harsh-sounding text.
So you think maybe he had got a text from her, and he thought maybe it was her boyfriend's phone?
Could have.
I mean, that's the only thing that makes any sense as far as from his angle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just weird.
Sounds pretty straightforward, like you said.
Yeah. But even if it was toward a male rival, why in the hell would he say that? "I'm going to bury you next to her."
Yeah, it's still threatening.
Unless he's like saying, "I'm going to kill you both," because at this point, that's just bad. You got real bad timing.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. But later on, Kyle would be unable to fully answer these questions about these texts, simply stating they were poorly timed and not incriminating, like we said.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, Catherine shared these text messages with Carina's mother, Margie Queen.
Okay, so she shared text messages. So there's more than that one line.
That's what she said.
So that's why he's saying taken out of context.
Yes.
I would love to see all of it.
I would too.
Okay.
But Catherine seemed affected by this enough to share it with her mother, Margie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, the following day, this was October the 10th, a day that Margie remembers quite distinctly. And it was Columbus Day.
Right.
And she was off work from her job because she was a postal worker. And Margie filed a missing persons report for Carina. But throughout the day, Margie would haul around Carina's baby brother, the youngest son, who was just 3 years old at the time, and they hung up posters around the area. And she began reaching out to Carina's known friends and family members.
Yeah, she was busting her ass.
Yeah,
she really was the only one at this point.
Yeah, hoping that some of them could shed some light on where Carina was.
You know, and I'm sure having a child that's got a problem like this, and you just do what you can for them and hope for the best, but just worry you to death.
Yeah, but Margie knew something was wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
And Carina had not posted on social media in more than a week, and several of her best friends had been out of contact with her for close to a month. And when Margie had gone to report Carina missing, police officers would note that she was, quote, terrified that something had happened to her daughter, unquote. Now we're moving to October the 13th of 2011, and there was a discovery made behind the Homeland grocery store. This was not too far away from where Carina had said bye to her cousin Catherine at the Taco Bell. And they were out there behind this store. There was a animal rescue group, and they were trying to trapped some feral cats
Yeah.
that had been discovered. And they were back there looking around, and they found a black duffel bag with a foul odor emanating from it.
Yeah.
And they phoned the police.
Yeah, because they kind of knew that this is something they don't need to be messing with.
Yeah. And when the police got there, they discovered that the black duffel bag was sitting beside another smaller laundry bag. And like I said, a foul odor was coming from both of them.
Yeah, not good.
Yep. And there was an examination of the interior of the bags, and they revealed it was pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the decapitation and dismemberment of 19-year-old Carina Saunders.
Yeah, which they didn't know at the beginning.
No, they didn't know that.
They just knew it was the body parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
But they had sent the body parts off and be examined.
Yes.
But her body parts had been individually cut and then wrapped in plastic and then stored inside these bags.
Right.
Her head and neck were inside the smaller laundry bag, and her other body parts, like her legs and arms, were in the larger duffel bag.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and according to the autopsy reports, inside the bag marked number 1, which would have been the smaller laundry bag, but I don't think it's going to be too small. Yeah, when we first got into this, we thought that the bags were the ones she was carrying and the one Keenan had given her, but it definitely weren't, which is good because, man, I could imagine you giving somebody a duffel bag and then find out they found her in it.
Can you imagine how Keegan felt?
Right. In bag number 1, in fact, that the stuff, you said was wrapped in plastic. It's kind of ironic and it's kind of sad that actually the bag that her head was wrapped up in actually was one of those that had the like the warning thing on it. It's like says like to avoid suffocation, keep this bag away from babies and children. Do not use this bag in a crib, a bed, a carriage, or a playpen. This bag is not a toy.
How crazy is that?
It's crazy and it's sad and it's ironic and it's awful.
That's screwed up, man.
Yeah. It said it basically was wrapped around her head and her upper neck, and her hair had been chopped off to less than 3 inches, which is odd.
Yeah. Because she had long brown hair.
Yeah, or had. Yeah, there was a large bruise around her right eye, like she had been punched, and then there was some very suspicious bruising around her right cheek, and her right shoulder, which they presume could have been some kind of torture. There were 20 various cuts in different lengths, depths, and directions on her neck. I mean, she went through some shit, dude.
Yeah.
Even her trachea was cut. I mean, like transected, cut all the way through. And then her lower right and left legs wrapped in about 8 foot of saran wrap. They were like cut off at the knees and in the feet, and the feet are missing. But those were also in the same bag. Now, bag number 2, which is the bigger black duffel bag, which they said also was full of maggots and insects, was the chest, abdomen, and upper thighs, reportedly being like one piece. The thighs had duct tape around, like 2 layers around, and then one layer around right at the kneecaps. And it looked like somebody had attempted to remove the legs at the hip and then kind of given up. I think it was like it's just too much work, maybe.
Yeah.
The forearms, hands, her feet, and her left breast were all missing. Where her left breast was a large 8x8 square wound where the breast had been cut off. There was a 1-inch cut right above where that was, which they presume was just done for torture. And then on her back, where she had a large tattoo that said Queen, spelled Kween, spade, and then had a large spade in the center of it, had tried to be removed. They had actually cut a square or a rectangle all the way around it, but just never did fully remove it.
You think they were doing this, cutting her hair off and trying to remove the tattoo to conceal her identity?
I do. And like you said, maybe she had a tattoo on her breast too. I don't know. We don't know that.
We don't know.
That's just speculation. I mean, why else would they cut it off?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Why does somebody cut anybody up as far as that goes? But
I feel like if she had a tattoo on her breast, it would be easier to take the breast off, and because especially against the one on the back, a flat surface, it'd be harder to cut out.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe they run out of time or whatever. I don't know. It's just kind of odd. But yeah, that would make sense of why that one was gone, unless it was just, I hate to say it was part of a torture thing, because that would be awful.
Yeah.
But anyway, we do know that some of this, even like when her feet were cut off, she was still alive.
Yeah. But it makes me wonder why behind this grocery store, this Homeland grocery store.
I don't know. It's an odd place.
Yeah, it's like a shopping center, several other stores in there, and several entrances and exits around this little complex there.
And it's a fairly long way from where they think the murder occurred.
Yeah. But
we'll get into.
they assumed that it didn't appear like Carina was killed at the scene behind this store.
Well, hell no. You know better than that.
But rather her remains had likely been disposed of there, which was probably chosen at random, what they were saying.
Yeah, but hell, it's a long way away. I don't know. It's just, you'd think, I guess people say it's a busy place, but, I've been going to my local grocery store for however long, and I ain't never been behind it.
No.
So, I don't know. Yeah, it's odd, but it's just weird.
Yep.
They didn't do it there. What do you think? Somebody brought a damn box of saran wrap and a butcher knife and killed somebody in the backyard and put them in the bag right there? That wouldn't make no sense at all.
But they did determine that Carina, her remains had been there for at least 3 or 4 days due to the decomposition that was already well underway.
Yeah, pretty bad.
But like we said, the identity of Carina was not known at the time, and the police would have to spend several days attempting to ID her remains.
Right.
And they had a pretty good idea from the start. And the following day, on October the 14th, 2011, members of the Bethany Police Department met with Carina's family to ask for dental records.
Right.
And they did not allow the family to view the body, believing this would not help
and at this point, which is another really awful ironic thing, is like her mother just didn't understand why they just couldn't go view the body. She even actually said it's not like she was dismembered or nothing.
Yeah, she'd find out later how bad it was.
Yeah.
But now on the following day, October the 17th, 2011.
It's Monday.
Yes. Yeah. The police called Carina's family and asked them to meet at their home. And they told Carina's parents not to go to work that day and to meet them immediately.
Yeah.
And that day, police officials and a chaplain informed Carina's family and her loved ones that the remains had been positively ID'd as Carina Saunders, and that the rumors they heard about the gruesome nature of her remains were true.
All true.
Yeah. And this was a parent's worst nightmare.
Dude, I'm telling you.
And Carina's family would be subject to a type of anguish that no parent or family should even endure, man.
I know. It's awful.
Yeah. But over the next several days, vigils would be held by Carina's family, and not only her family members, but her friends, and some assembled in front of the Bethany Police Department to console one another, while others stood alongside the intersection holding up images of Carina. And a memorial was held that week at the local Nazarene church. This was the same one that Carina had attended with her mom in September, and she was later buried in her hometown Mustang Cemetery, in a small plot near the back of the cemetery.
Yeah.
And her headstone featured a large butterfly.
It's huge.
Yeah, which was one of Carina's favorite symbols.
Yeah.
And the family believes it represents Carina in more ways than one, with her mother saying that butterflies have very short lives. Carina was 19. She didn't live long. We will be with Carina in heaven for much longer than 19 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and they still go out to the cemetery and just hang out there. Go out there and sit with her.
Yeah.
It was on that documentary. It was pretty touching.
Now, early on in this investigation, one person of interest was named, and his name was Cody Perez. Now, Perez, he was an acquaintance of Carina's who was going to a local culinary school, and he was working at an Olive Garden at the time of Carina's murder.
Right.
But now get this, on the same day that Carina was reported missing on October the 10th, 2011, Cody Perez had decided to skip town.
Yeah.
He even pawned off his knife collection in Bethany, Oklahoma.
And decided just to split.
Yeah, leave the area.
So I'm assuming this is his work knives or something.
Yeah.
Because you're just not going to take a regular knife unless it's an old collection or something to do with his culinary skill.
Yeah, but, culinary knives, for chef school are pretty expensive.
Right.
Yeah. But rumor was that he had begun hitchhiking headed to the southwest, either Arizona or California.
Hitchhiking?
Yeah. How crazy is that?
No doubt.
Perez was labeled a person of interest by the police.
Yeah.
And he was singled out for the numerous juggalo tattoos he had all over his body.
Yeah. He was a juggalo, that's for sure.
Yep, and local reporters were eager to link lyrics from the Juggalo theme group Insane Clown Posse to the murder of Carina Saunders.
Yeah, that's just barking up the wrong tree, if you ask me.
Yeah.
You can't just pull lyrics out, or the Hatchet Man tattoo and this kind of stuff, and then think that's somebody who's chopping up, because it's not.
Yeah. Now, Rachel Hope Laraway, this is Perez's mother. She refused to go into specifics with the media, but she did state that Cody had gone missing and the police were eager to talk to him.
Yeah, she just said he just dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah. But Cody Perez was later located in Arizona, and he made contact with the Bethany police about a week or so after Carina's remains were found on October the 21st. And he claimed that his move out of state was purely coincidental and was related to a dispute he'd gotten into with another man.
Basically a squabble that had nothing to do with Carina.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Cody Perez returned to Bethany, Oklahoma, and talked to the police. And likewise, the knives he had pawned off were tested by the police for any sign of human blood or anything.
Well, come on, man. If you went to kill somebody with your damn knives, would you take them to the pawn shop?
If you're stupid.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you got knives like that, if you're going to do something with, you just dispose of them.
Yeah.
You just get rid of them.
Yeah, bury them or something. I don't know. Don't take them to the pawn shop.
But they did test him, and the test came back negative.
Right, so he's free and clear.
And nothing Perez had said seemed to incriminate him in any way. And he was cleared of a suspect.
Yes.
But I don't know if anybody's ever really cleared.
Are you?
No, I don't think anybody's ever really cleared.
No.
No.
Cleared for the time being.
Exactly. You just sort of put them on the back burner, but you're not really cleared. And the FBI, they offered up their assistance into this investigation, which was headed up by the Bethany Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
Investigators would interview more than 80 witnesses over the next several months, many of who were drug users and addicts.
Yeah, strung out.
Yeah, and they were people related to Carina and her social group, but slowly began to trickle out.
Yeah.
Now, Cody Perez, he was one of the first persons of interest cleared by the investigators, like we said, but was quickly followed by Kyle Savage. And this was the guy who had sent the
text message.
Yeah, the ominous message to Catherine.
Right.
And police stated that he had nothing new to offer to them, and he was cleared even after a single interview.
Right.
And he continued to state that
the message was just coincidental.
Yeah.
It didn't mean nothing.
That's what he was saying.
That's why I want to say I'd like to read the rest of it.
I would love to read it.
Yeah.
Now, police stated that they were able to track...
This is full of bad timing, ain't it?
This
story.
Yeah. Now, police stated they were able to track Carina's last known whereabouts to the apartment complex that was near Northwest 41st and MacArthur Boulevard. And sometime later, they would discover closed-captioned TV footage of her outside the Newcastle Casino, like we said.
Right.
Which pegged her last known whereabouts
October 8th.
As of October 8th.
Right.
This was 5 days before her remains were discovered. And that gave investigators a timetable for her death.
So what this tells me, where's the damn red truck?
Exactly. I want to know where that red truck is. How hard would that be to find?
Right.
With the brush grill and the roll bars and the lights on top.
4-door. I mean, it's not small.
No, it's not just an ordinary truck.
Right.
Now, investigators would soon turn their attention to an address of 3500 South Harvey Street, which was now an empty lot. They tore this house down. And coincidentally, the house that had been there was demolished on the same day that Carina's body was found.
Now, this house was...
It was known as a drug house.
Yeah, it was like trashed. I mean, it was like spray painted on the outside. Even the neighbors that went and spray painted dope house on the side of it. Yeah. So because they knew what was going on in there. People just meeting there to get high and do whatever. And it was just trash and graffiti all over. So it's not like it was just a house that they were hanging out in.
And it was known for the endless parade of violence and sex workers.
Yeah. So the guy who bought it, actually, he had bought it and had it for like 6 months and before he demolished it. But I think he bought it to demolish it, actually.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they tried to find this guy, too, on this thing we watched, but he never talked to him.
Yep, and police have been called to the house more than a dozen times, including at least once in 2010. This is when a sex offender attempted to commit suicide inside the house. Right. And in 2011, when someone attempted to set fire to the house.
Right, and I think that's when the people went and painted the stuff on the side of the house, and they was they knew people they were basically advertising what's going on in there, and the neighbors painted dope house on the side of it, and we got a picture of that. We'll post it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the people were pissed off and then tried to set it on fire just to be that way.
But despite the exhaustive search of that empty lot there, where the house was,
Right.
Nothing could be linked to Carina Saunders at the house.
No.
That once stood there.
No, they went back, I think, afterwards and actually went over the grounds and tried to dig up some stuff, but they never found nothing.
No. And results from Carina's autopsy would not be publicly released for several months after her death because investigators viewed the details of her death as being instinctively linked to their ongoing investigation.
Right.
When the autopsy was released, the death of Carina Saunders was classified as a violent death, which was labeled as a homicide on the official autopsy report.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we went through before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the pathologist that conducted the autopsy theorized that Carina had been drugged before her death, Dale.
Right.
And due to postmortem toxicological reports from her liver, which came back positive for tramadol.
Which is basically a non-narcotic. It's kind of like a man-made pain reliever.
Yeah, used for like pain after surgery and stuff.
Right. It's not an opiate. It's man-made.
No. And it is a prescription drug, not something that someone can get easily.
Yeah, you can't get it at the store.
No, you have to have a prescription for it.
Right.
But back in 2011, before agencies started to crack down on opiate usage, it was fairly easy to get, and it was unknown how it ended up in Carina's body.
Right, because it's not like really powerful, like Oxycontin or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but because of the Carina's decomposition, pathologists were unable to obtain blood samples to confirm just exactly how much tramadol was in her body.
Yeah,
but it was there to some degree.
Yeah, we're talking what was it, like 5 days later after she died.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, based on the circumstances, it was impossible to determine whether or not Carina had been alive when the brutal dismemberment took place, and it remained a possibility, but experts could not rule definitively one way or another. And the findings from the autopsy were not released for close to a year as police wanted to build a case against their primary suspects. And the findings from the autopsy would provide the framework for their pending investigation, which was building itself around 2 suspects, both of whom would be charged less than a year after Carina's remains were found.
Right.
Now we're moving to May of 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and this is when a woman named Tia, no last name, was hanging out with a friend at the Bel Air Motel in Oklahoma. That sounds like a swanky place, doesn't it?
Man.
Now Tia claims that when her friend named Luis went to the bathroom, she began looking through his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And in his videos, she found a grainy video that was showing the murder of Carina Saunders.
Yeah, so it's
in this
supposedly
video.
been videoed,
Yeah. Now, Tia knew Carina from prior run-ins, claiming that she had once been forced to babysit Carina on more than one occasion.
Yeah, from her just being so messed up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she says that on a later occasion, a mutual friend had recalled him making remarks that threatened violence against Carina. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Now, according to Bethany Police Lieutenant J.R. Jinks, this video was incredibly graphic and showed the brutal torture and butchery of Carina Saunders.
Yeah.
And it was Lieutenant Jinks that was quoted saying in his affidavit, Tia said she watched this video for a few seconds until Saunders began to scream.
Yeah, he was cutting the foot off.
Yeah. And in this affidavit, Jinks would later write that Tia's friend Luis was the person in the video cutting off the foot of Carina Saunders.
And actually said he had cut off one and started to cut off her other one, and the saw broke.
Yes.
Now, I don't know.
It was like a hacksaw.
Now, this is I don't know about this dude. Because if you're sneaking in somebody's phone, you got time to watch a video if you're going to the bathroom. It's kind of a weird story, but...
Yeah, I mean you're going to risk it.
I don't know what their actual relationship was, but, maybe she's just bored. I don't know. But
yeah.
It's kind of a weird story.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now, on July the 5th of 2012, 2 men were charged with the first-degree murder of Carina Saunders. 37-year-old Luis Ruiz, who had been arrested a few days prior, charged with shoplifting.
Now, this is the guy with the phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
After entering custody, he found out he was being charged alongside a friend of his. This was 33-year-old Jimmy Massey, who had been arrested the prior December for drug trafficking.
Big Country.
Yeah, that was his nickname, Big Country.
Yeah.
And both men had a number of priors, mainly related to drug offenses. However, their criminal records stretched outside of Oklahoma and made them prime candidates for Carina's murder. Yeah. Now, according to statements gathered by Tia, this woman that looked at the phone, investigators detailed an alleged criminal organization headed by Ruiz and Massey, which dabbled in drug dealing, human trafficking, and potential murder. The two men were linked to a number of other acquaintances, including a man named Francisco Gomez that was arrested on the same day. He was later cleared of any wrongdoing in this case and was not charged with any crimes related to Carina Saunders. Now, in addition to Tia's testimony that she viewed a gruesome video on this cell phone belonging to Ruiz, another woman named Michelle came forward. Now, Dale, she claimed that she had been kidnapped by this Jimmy Massey and Ruiz and was forced to watch the murder of Carina Saunders. And she claimed that she escaped by jumping out of a window and later came forward to the police. Now, according to this Michelle, her being forced to witness the brutal dismemberment and murder of Carina was like a power move to them. It was showing her and others what happened to women that didn't play ball.
Right.
They wasn't doing what they wanted to do. Presumably, they were all to become victims of human trafficking and forced into some kind of prostitution.
Right. So there was kidnapping people for human trafficking and then from some sex work.
Yes.
This is the story. Okay.
Yeah. Now, Michelle's testimony put the date of Carina's murder as October the 11th, 2011, and stated that the murder happened in the now demolished home of the 3500 South Harvey Street, like we talked about.
Yeah.
The dope house. Now, there were two inmates that shared a cell with Jimmy Massey, and they would later claim that he confessed to involvement in this brutal murder of Carina.
Yeah.
And they seemed to validate the prior witness statement to a T and included details of how Massey had conspired with Ruiz to dismember Carina. Now, investigators finally seemed to be getting somewhere with this, and close to a year after her remains were found, they now had multiple eyewitnesses providing incriminating statements about Jimmy Massey and Luis Ruiz.
Yeah.
And so they had some pretty tangible evidence.
Yeah, so they think.
Yeah.
If any evidence is there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they took the dude's phone when they got him, right? I mean,
they would have to take the phone.
Right. I hadn't heard anything about that.
They ain't heard anything about it.
No. So did they take his phone? Did they not? Was it gone? Did they delete it? Who knows?
Yeah, this was 2011. I just don't know how much stuff was backed up to the cloud back then.
There wasn't no clouds in, was it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Probably not. Now, when Luis Ruiz and Jimmy Massey were charged with first-degree murder, it began spreading some panic there throughout Bethany, Oklahoma. Many that lived in and around this Oklahoma city had become familiar with the murder of Carina. It was one of the most brutal murders in the past decades.
You think?
Yeah, and it grabbed the attention of everybody, and they refused to let it go.
Yeah, it was terrible.
And police were telling the public that a human trafficking ring had been operating in the region, which was potentially tied to some Mexican cartels.
Well, once you start saying cartel, that's some serious shit.
Yeah, you start locking doors.
And then this brutality starts to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because they don't play.
Yeah, and as you can imagine, this caused quite a stir, man.
Mm-hmm.
And many were frightened not by the murders of Carina Saunders, but the things that the police and prosecutors were now telling everybody.
Right, human trafficking, sex slavery, dismemberment, all this stuff going on right here in your own little neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be afraid to go outside.
It's kind of like stuff you see on TV is now happening right here in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
it's real.
The middle part of the United States.
Right.
And some people begin to realize that things the investigators are saying seem to be based on more hearsay than actual evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all the statements that have been supplied by people making these confessions, they can now pinpoint many of the witnesses themselves had issues of credibility.
Well, they did say they were talking to a lot of drug addicts and people strung out. So.
Yeah. And investigators continued to reach out hoping to find evidence of this video that was found on Luis's phone.
Supposedly.
Yeah, they began searching through phones, cameras, and hard drives, SIM cards and SD cards and other devices, hoping to find footage of Carina's murder. And this was the footage that would sort of cement their case if they could find it. But unfortunately, As the weeks and days began to drag out, the suspects continued to languish in jail without bail. The investigators began to learn that there was no video existed.
They couldn't find it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, they couldn't find it. And to make matters worse, their most credible witness, this was Tia. She changed her story, Dale.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, instead of claiming that she had seen the video, she now claimed that she had just heard about the video from a friend of hers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Big difference. I just heard about it.
Yeah. I had a friend who had a friend who had a friend who had a neighbor who had a cousin who had an ankle,
Yeah.
They saw it. One of them people.
Yeah. Now, in February of 2013, the case against Luis Ruiz and Jimmy Massey, it sort of fell apart.
Yep.
And at the beginning of the month of February, the Bethany Police Department asked for the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation to start overseeing the case. And in public, the Bethany Police Chief, Phil Cole, insisted that the case needed a new perspective. And while behind the scenes, the Oklahoma County DA, his name was David Prater, he insisted that Chief Cole and his department relinquish control.
Right, yeah, I don't think they were asked. I think they just took over because some shady stuff is going on here.
Yeah, which we're going to get into.
Yeah.
Now, later that February, following the weeks of speculation, all charges against Luis Ruiz and Jimmy Massey were dropped due to the lack of evidence. And the investigators had been unable to find any linking evidence to them or Carina's death. Now, Luis Ruiz was released from jail, having been held without bail for several months.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy Massey, on the other hand, would remain incarcerated pending a trial for drug trafficking. And he would be later sentenced to a 10-year prison for possession and distribution of methamphetamines.
Yep, selling that meth.
Yep. Now, with the release of Luis Ruiz and Jimmy Massey from the police custody, the investigation had to start over from the very beginning. Yeah.
They're back to nothing.
Yeah. And it was rumored that the Oklahoma County DA, David Prater, was the one who demanded the Bethany PD give up the case, losing all faith in investigation abilities.
Now, it made him look bad.
Yeah. Now, this Captain Jack Jinks that we talked about a little bit ago, the man that had, started up this Carina Saunders investigation, he was let go from the Bethany Police Department.
Well,
yeah. It was discovered that evidence was missing from the property room, the police property room, and Jinks was identified as the most likely culprit. He was later charged with 11 counts of larceny of a controlled dangerous substance. But just before the case went to trial, all the charges would be dropped.
Imagine that.
And more than a year later, Jinks was reinstated to the police force with back pay, and which caused him to immediately retire with benefits and pension.
Right. So it's like, this is something shady going on here.
Exactly.
Okay, what we're going to do, you can't come back, okay, but we can reinstate you.
With back pay.
With back pay, and then you can retire, and that way you'll have all your pension and stuff.
You have this big boatload of money.
Right. It's kind of like an NFL guy who goes back to his first team and signs for one day so he can retire with that thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of something shady going on there.
It's very shady.
There's a lot of shady. Go ahead.
Now, in 2014, just a few months after the dismissal of Jack Jinks, another Bethany police officer was terminated. This was Lieutenant Austin Warfield, another of the primary investigators, and he was let go following an internal investigation. He was the third officer let go in a very short period of time, and the second with an active involvement in the Carina Saunders murder. But like Jinks, this Warfield would eventually be reinstated through arbitration, but the Bethany Police Department had taken a huge PR hit. Dale.
Oh, yeah. Nobody believed nothing coming out of there.
No, they ain't believing nothing coming out of them. In his 2014 lawsuit, Luis Ruiz specifically named Police Chief Phil Cole, Captain Jack Jinks, and Lieutenant Austin Warfield, claiming that in addition to them failing to uphold the law, they had, quote, employed deceptive, misleading, and manipulative and illegal acts to manipulate and fabricate the criminal case, unquote. The lawsuit filed by Ruiz included claims of more than 10 civil rights violations and critiqued the manner in which the entire investigation had played out.
Yep. Well, they settled for, he got $50,000.
Yes.
Out of that.
But the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation would continue to explore the murder of Carina Saunders more than 5 years after her death. In the process of starting the case from the beginning, they had to focus on the people that surrounded Carina in their final days. And one of the names that kept coming up was this Kenny Richards.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the creepy 44 or 40-something-year-old guy met at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this Kenny, he was the older man, and he had a checkered relationship with Carina. And some had claimed that the two were involved in some kind of sex work, like we said, with him operating as a pimp. But now, if you think back, Dale, this Kenny Richards was one of the last people to see Carina.
Yep.
Because he was the older guy that had picked her up at the Taco Bell.
Yeah.
And he told police that Carina and him had hung out.
And then he dropped her off at that apartment complex.
Yeah. Along Rockwell Avenue.
So that ain't nothing new.
No.
Well, if he was a pimp, he didn't do a very good job. He wasn't protecting her at all.
No, he wasn't. And in March of 2012, Kenny had reported the death of another young woman. This was a 22-year-old exotic dancer who worked at the Oklahoma City nightclub. The name of the club was Night Trips.
Yeah.
And her death was viewed suspicious by police, and it was believed that she endured some trauma before her death, but Richards was not charged with any involvement. Now, in January of 2013, a pair of anonymous tips were received by the Bethany PD, which claimed that Kenny Richards had killed Carina and then buried her clothing and personal items of hers on his property.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, one tip alleged that he had buried these items in a metal tank on a piece of property he owned from February 1995 to June of 2012.
Yeah, he had sold his place like less than a year after she died.
Yes.
Got out of there.
Now, these anonymous tips were filed by investigators, but seemed to collect dust for a while for the next couple of years, and the case sort of languished.
It's crazy, man.
And it wasn't until November of 2016, more than a decade after Carina's murder, the official interest in Kenny Richards was revived by the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Now, that month, a cell phone belonging to Kenny Richards was confiscated during a meth arrest, and a digital search warrant yielded a photograph of Carina and a picture that investigators had not yet seen. And details of this photo were never released to the public, but it seemed to spark some interest in the investigation. Just wonder what this photo is.
Mm.
And in April of 2017, police conducted several searches related to the tips they had received back in 2013 related to Kenny Richards and his property.
Yeah.
And they ended up finding several items of interest, as noted by the OSBI spokesperson, which included a woman's shirt, jacket, sandals, and some other junk and debris.
Right.
And these items were all found buried on Kenny Richards' property inside an old septic tank.
Yeah, this was on that documentary as well. They went and dug up the backyard. They didn't find anything hardly. And then in the front, it's when they were using like a over-the-ground radar, sonar, or whatever you call it.
Penetrating radar, yeah.
Yeah, and then they found this tank and dug it up, and it was in the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked to him, and he's like, well, I raised so many girls on this property. Ain't no wonder stuff's in there. I'm like, okay, it'd be in the septic tank? I mean, it was an old septic tank, so I don't think it was one that was being used or had been used for a long time. So maybe it was just like the metal tank in the ground. But it was odd.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't think nothing come over it.
Yeah. But over the past couple of years, police have began turning their attention from previous named persons of interest to the mysterious individuals she was last seen with. Now, if you think back...
Where's the damn truck?
Yeah, this truck, that's what I want to know where. Yeah. The last known location of Carina was at this Newcastle Casino gaming center,
Mm-hmm.
which is about 20 miles south of the location of where her body was found. And there, like we said, she was spotted on this closed caption TV footage getting into this large red pickup truck on October the 8th of 2011. And shortly before police believed she was murdered.
Now, if you look at the map, I just looked up, from 3500 Harvey Avenue there to
that was the drug house.
Yeah, the casino is approximately 14 miles north of that. You kind of go north and then, a little bit over. So it's about 20 minutes north. So are we saying that this other place is 20 miles the other way?
It seems that way, yeah.
Seems like a whole lot of driving. I don't know. It's just odd. I'm just trying to put stuff in perspective where it was.
Yeah, unless there's just other stops in between all that stuff.
So, well, I guess it makes sense. I guess if they pick her up at the at the casino, and they'd drive 15 miles back to the house, if that's where they went, and then they went way the other way to dump the body.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense on that, but I don't know, it is kind of random and way out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be kind of like if I picked you up down here in town and come back to here and then took you up to Hickory or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Police have not been able to identify the only known man that was inside the truck. Like I said,
did they try?
Yeah, the man with the sleeve tattoos.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to try to figure it out, but we're not going to show anybody a picture.
We're not going to let it out, yeah.
Yeah.
But it remains unknown how many details police have about these people. And it is now believed that the man or men inside the red pickup truck might be responsible for Carina's death. And it sounds like, if anybody knows of this person or knows that truck around Oklahoma City, call somebody, call the police, call the OSBI.
So now you think, I don't know, it's kind of a wild guess, and this has nothing to do with anything that I've heard or anything. I'm just kind of brainstorming. First of all, this girl hanging out at the casino, well, she didn't have no money. So she's either going there for drugs or for sex work.
Yeah.
So was this a place known to where you could drive through and pick up a date, per se? Because if they're there to gamble, there's footage of them in the damn building. Now, only place there wouldn't be is if they were just cruising the parking lot because they knew that people, you can go there for that.
Right.
And I don't know this, and this is just going to pop in my head, because that's the only reason it would make sense that they wouldn't have any more footage of these people. Because if they ever stepped in foot, you can bet your ass there's video footage of those folks going in that building. Yeah,
this covered with cameras, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just keeps eating at me that this has not been checked into, or if it has, they definitely haven't told anybody.
Yeah. They need to release that video of that truck.
Right. Yeah. And then go back and see, did they go in? Did they just drive through the parking lot? That's a lot of questions I got.
Yeah, I agree. Now, on the 1-year anniversary of Carina's death, this was back in 2012, her family donated $4,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And the money was raised via fundraisers started in Carina's honor. And her loved ones have continued to make a charitable contribution in her name ever since. Some have started scholarships for local high schools, and some began to small organizations meant that bettering lives for sex workers and those struggling with substance abuse issues.
Yeah, man, get them off the street.
Now, as a lady, Melissa Wagner, she was one of Carina's longtime friends, remembers Carina not only as a murder victim, but rather a real person whose wonderful, bright life was tragically ended much too early. So it's a sad case, man. It's unsolved today.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Now, also, there was a Judy Roberts that they were looking for, and talked to her, and accusations basically was saying, that her and Carina were using drugs together and hanging out, and then they made their way to the Newcastle Casino before she went missing. And also said that this Roberts lady was really nervous because she owed the money to a lot of to drug dealers, and they thought basically it was some stolen stuff from cartels. So she was kind of freaking out about this stuff too, and actually she had called somebody, and this guy, a Mexican guy, showed up at her house and wanted to talk to her and stuff, and there was a lot of people.
How scary is that?
Yeah, it's kind of like Ozark, right? Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of people saying that they thought that maybe the cartel had thought that Carina was her daughter and had
this Judy Roberts.
Yes, and had nabbed her because of the money.
Teach her a lesson.
Now, this is all speculation, of course, but it is part of the story. And they did hang out and go. Now, this Judy's daughter had actually said that the two went to the casino together and hanging out, while Judy's story was that she dropped off Carina at the front door and she walked in while she turned and went another way and never saw her again. Mm-hmm. So who knows what's really going on. There's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know, but I felt it was important to add that part anyway.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that the police haven't released on this man.
There's a lot of stuff they released, a lot of stuff they don't know. And then actually we watched another documentary, you and I, about from this lady named Becky Long. Mm-hmm. And she is claiming that her dad was the Oklahoma City butcher who was a serial killer who killed
three women,
but it would have been about 10 years prior to this.
They were like Native American women.
Right, but they had all been cut up, wrapped up in plastic, had their hair cut. I mean, everything was basically the same.
As Carina, yeah.
Right, and so this lady had been with her dad supposedly when she was really young, And then after he passed away, she had really had to have a lot of psychiatric help, and go and talk to some people about some stuff that was being unlocked in her mentally. Anyway, long story short, and you can go watch it on YouTube. She thinks that maybe her dad was the one who killed her, being that everything was the same. And basically, he worked really near, some of the stuff, and was always kind of in that area.
Yeah.
Now, we have no proof of none of this stuff except for what she says. And a lot of stuff she says makes sense. But, I don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody else is kind of, and it might have, could have been. He could have snuck in there and done it while everybody's looking at the Mexican cartel and looking at these other two guys. And they never even, because they were pretty much focused on these two dudes. And that was it,
Yeah.
Especially at the beginning, and also on the other documentary we watched, they found Big Country, who was now living in Texas with a family and straightened up, and brought him in, and he actually came in and talked to him, and he said he didn't have nothing to do with it. He really didn't even know this girl, and actually took a lie detector and passed it.
It's Jimmy Massey.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think he is living in Texas and teaching self-defense or something.
Yeah, being a former military guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this thing is really confusing. It's a really tragic and brutal death, and of a young girl who really never had a chance to do anything.
But now on the 5-year anniversary of this investigation, back in 2016, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, they announced a $10,000 reward for any information leading to Carina's killer being identified.
Right.
And this was followed up just a few months after that, in September of 2018. When an anonymous donor announced a $50,000 reward.
Mm-hmm.
But this reward
had a time limit. Yeah,
it expired. It gave a 1-month deadline for someone or anyone to come forward with this rumored video of Carina's murder.
Yep.
And the email there.
Yeah, he gave an email address was don'tbeacoward13@yahoo.com.
Yeah.
And he would give $50,000 for anybody who sent that video. And if no video existed, he would offer $30,000 for the identity of the killers.
Yeah.
And the reason he said he put a timeline on it is because he knew if it was a timeline, people knew they would, come ahead and come forward.
Yep.
But nothing ever came of it.
And also, the face of Carina Saunders continues to linger in the area. And on several unsolved crime posters and flyers, it also haunts prisoners in the state of Oklahoma, as Carina is the queen of spades in the Oklahoma cold case card deck,
right?
Which hopes to inspire some convicts and other inmates.
Yeah, their thinking is maybe somebody will see her and they'll know something and come forward with it.
Yeah.
But to this day, nothing yet.
Nothing. But it's still unsolved today, and this family needs some justice for this girl, man.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah. This truck at this casino, they need to release that photo.
Yeah.
Or video, whatever they got.
That's the one thing, man, that really bothers me about this. Well, I mean, ain't the one that bothers me, but it's just, because we're a stickler for details, and that's just like, what the hell's going on with this truck?
I know.
Tell me something.
Yeah. And this guy with the sleeves, it's just not something, this would stand out.
Yes.
Somebody would know this.
Well, you'd think.
Yeah.
Either that or the people who's in the car going, don't get in that truck. Why are they saying don't get in the truck? Apparently they know something.
Yeah.
Maybe they were sex workers that had been in that truck before or had seen that truck before.
Exactly.
Or the guy knew that he was bad news.
That's what I was thinking.
But I don't know.
But if anyone knows any information on Carina Saunders, please let someone know. Contact the OSBI. They can call 1-800-522-8017, or you can email your tips in to tips@osbi.ok.gov.
Yes.
All right, bud, we're going to get out of here.
All right, let's roll.
We want everyone to be safe. Please be careful and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is
the Crack House Chronicles.